shared a moment of spontaneous laughter. So what? While you were laughing, your whole brain was engaged. Humor generated a cascade of neurotransmitters which engaged your prefrontal cortex, which processes wit, the limbic system, which evokes mirth, the occipital lobe, which generates laughter. So what? Humor is more than just entertainment. It's so much more powerful than that. The benefits of humor are physiological, psychological, social, and spiritual. Humor has the power to heal, influence, connect, and enlighten. Humor is power. My friend, Dr. Lee Burke, is a leading psychoneuroimmunologist who studies humor in the brain. He says if we took what we now know about laughter and bottled it, it would require FDA approval. While you were laughing, there was so much more going on than what you probably realize. You are literally healthier than you were when I first walked on the stage. If we had you wired for brain activity, we'd see a flood of gamma waves. More on that later. If we had you wired for physiological activity, we would see a drop in cortisol, a drop in your blood pressure, a drop in your muscle tension. If psychologically you experienced positive and uplifting emotions, even though you didn't know why you were laughing. And socially, you bonded with everyone in the room through a shared emotional experience. So what? Do you know anyone who suffers from heart disease, from diabetes, from memory problems, from depression, from memory problems, from stress, from memory problems? These conditions are no joke, but they may be a laughing matter. Why? Because humor is power. Now, you've also heard that knowledge is power. Not quite. It's the application of knowledge that's power. I'm a nurse. I know how to perform CPR. But if I see you clutch your chest and collapse to the ground, it's not going to help you if I hover over you going, I know how to perform CPR. No, it's not in the knowledge, it's in the application of the knowledge. So I don't want you to be satisfied when you leave here today knowing that humor is good for you. I want you to grasp the power that you have at your very fingertips, but you haven't taken advantage of. And I want to inspire you to take action. I'm a neurohumorist. I know what you're thinking. Another neurohumorist. For 25 years, I've lived at the intersection of humor and the brain. For my master's thesis, I studied the effects of humor on health and communication. When I was first asked to share my findings, I was thrilled, starting with my fellow academics. My very first presentation, I dove into my research methodology. I excitedly explained the significance of the p-value of less than 0.05. And I discovered that people thought I was funny. Who knew? From there, I went on to share my findings with local groups and companies, and then national groups and companies, and then international groups and companies. I'd stumbled backwards into my calling. We're just now beginning to grasp the power of the giggle, the chortle, the belly laugh. But it's taken eons to emerge for people to recognize that intentional humor has real power in the real world. Let me give you some context by giving you a brief history of humor, or a countdown. 10. 200,000 BC, Og drops a rock on Oog's foot. Everyone laughs. 9. The ancient Greeks believed that health was a balance of 4 body fluids they called humors. 8. Proverbs 17:22, a merry heart doeth good like a medicine. 7. 9th century, the laughing Buddha appears. 6, the Dark Ages. Okay, no humor there. 5, the Reformation. Court jesters, through humor, tell truths that no one else dares speak. 4, early 20th century, Sigmund Freud publishes jokes and their relation to the unconscious, and also has the insight, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. 3, 1970s, Norman Cousins cures himself of ankylosing spondylitis by watching comedy films and Candid Camera, and goes on to write the classic Anatomy of an Illness. 2, 1970s, it was Patch Adams who broke ranks with his fellow doctors by using intentional humor as a healing modality in hospitals. 1, today, science proves the power of humor to change humans at the cellular level. 0, liftoff. In your lifetime, you will experience the power of humor as it heals disease, shapes society, and helps save the world. Save the world, did she say? Yes, it's already happened once. October 1962, the Cuban Missile Crisis is careening forward. The countdown to nuclear Armageddon is ticking toward 0. For 13 days, America and Russia rattled their nuclear sabers. As a 6-year-old girl, I wasn't afraid of the bomb. I was afraid of the fear in my father's face. That's what kept me awake at night. Negotiations between the two superpowers are deadlocked. A handful of stone-faced men stare at each other across a mahogany boardroom table. The tension is palpable as these men literally hold the fate of our world in their hands. And then one of the Soviet delegates tells a joke. What is difference between capitalism and communism? In capitalism, men exploits men. In communism, it's other way around. Both sides laugh. The tension breaks, the talks resume, and you know the rest. They didn't blow up the planet. Humor is power. Let's shift our perspective from the global or macro level to the micro or cellular level. Science now shows the power of humor to change human beings at the cellular level. Researchers have discovered positive changes in the epithelial lining of blood vessels, in levels of cortisol, in the immune system. This is great news for people with diabetes, heart disease, autoimmune disorders, fertility problems, dementia, depression. But wait, there's more. Recent research shows the power of humor goes beyond the cellular level. Studies conducted on people with diabetes showed that prorenin dropped sharply after they watched funny films. And even bigger news, published in the journal Life Sciences. Laughter normalized the expression of the prorenin receptor gene, thus demonstrating the inhibitory effect of laughter at the onset and deterioration of diabetic complications at the gene expression level. Say what? In layman's terms, humor has the power to change your very DNA. You could be passing along healthier genes to your children. Epigenetics, pow. This is your future. And the better it gets, the better it gets. For the last 30 years, neuroscientists have uncovered bit by bit the secrets behind brain waves, how alpha, beta, delta, and theta waves are associated with varying degrees of consciousness. But when they looked at the 5th kind of brainwave, gamma waves, the waves were so fine that at first researchers thought they were merely static. But over the years, technology improved. And 10 years ago, researchers discovered that gamma waves were related to mental states achieved by deep meditation and mindfulness. States like creativity, focus, and flow. And then just recently, Dr. Lee Burke studied brain activity on people exposed to humor and discovers that mirthful humor generates gamma waves too. So what? Could a better memory improve your grades? Would you like your lectures to have more impact? Would you be able to benefit from more productivity at work? Would you be able to benefit from more clarity in your thinking? Have you ever had to deal with an obstinate child? Have you ever had to overcome the overwhelming desire to choke the living daylights out of some idiot who desperately deserves it? Humor can help you survive and thrive in all of these situations. You hold in your hands the power to change your world, our world. And more good news. You don't even have to be funny. Don't get me wrong. I think being funny is great. How many of you in here think you're funny? I'm not going to look. The person over here, you have your hand raised, and the person behind you is going, no, I don't think. Show of hands, how many of you think you have a sense of humor? Yeah, I would expect all hands to go up, but for no other reason, it's socially unacceptable to admit that you don't have a sense of humor. Being funny, performing, generating laughter, this is a great skill to have. But it's actually more important to see funny than it is to be funny. If you practice the seeing funny, the being funny will fall into place. Here's one quick way and a shortcut to the power of humor. Raise your awareness. Ask yourself, what's funny around here? What am I missing? Now, some people whine, but there's nothing funny happening in my life. And if that's your belief, that's your reality. But if you will intentionally raise your awareness and start listening for humor, you'll find it. I once overheard a tourist in Miami ask a hotel clerk, which beach is closest to the water? Seriously, you do not have to make this stuff up. If you intentionally look for humor, you'll see funny things that other people miss. At this gym, members ride up an escalator so they can work out on a Stairmaster. Not a bar in sight, but absolutely no alcohol beyond this point, so start chugging. I don't even know what this means. But it cracks me up every time I see it. My interest in humor isn't just professional, it's personal. My son David was a full-time student in college and a part-time bouncer in a bar, makes a mom proud. He and his best buddy at the bar were nicknamed Tonto and the Lone Ranger. One morning, David wakes up with a pain in his chest, and long story short, it's a fist-size cancerous tumor. Weeks of chemo turn into months. He loses all his hair, but not his spirit. One day, his buddies come by after hanging out at the bar. They come over to hang out for a bit. And I hear waves of laughter flood the house. So I ask, when they leave, he's smiling, bigger than he had for months. So I said, well, what's all that about? And he laughed and he said, oh, I've got a new nickname, Chemo Sabi. Laughter and humor empowered him, and it faded our fears. And by the way, David's been cancer-free now for 10 years. I'm not saying that humor cured his cancer, although scientific evidence is beginning to point in that direction. However, it's an indisputable fact that during this devastating time, humor helped him cope and it improved the quality of his life. 100 years before nuclear Armageddon was deflected by humor, Mark Twain wrote, "The human race has but one really effective weapon, and that's laughter." 70 years ago, Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl said humor was another of the soul's weapons in the fight for self-preservation. Science now proves that both of these statements are true. Humor's not merely anecdotal. It's not wishful thinking. It's not just a dream. It's real. Do you remember that great quote by Spider-Man's Uncle Ben, Peter Parker's Uncle Ben? "With great power comes great responsibility." You now have a great responsibility because you now know how powerful humor is. And to not act on this responsibility would be to deprive yourself and your families and all of humanity of the many benefits of humor. It's time we take humor seriously. It's time to take action because humor is